It is another episode of Amjambo Time. Thank you for all who help us to broadcast this unique program. I want to welcome our listeners in Maine and around the world. Here are our headline stories. 75 jobs need to be filled by 2029 in Maine. Our reporters covered the Inclusion in Maine conference, a 3-day event focused on Maine's workforce needs. In New East Africa, a conference on humanitarian aid, stabilization, good governance was held in South Portland, Maine on May 3rd. Children who have experienced corrective loss have an opportunity to come together to build a community through the Center for Grieving Children in Maine. The Cambodian New Year was celebrated in Westbrook with dance, food, a parade, beautiful traditional clothing, and more. The details after the break.
This program is sponsored by Maine Humanities Council, a statewide nonprofit that uses books, poetry, and big ideas to bring people together to discuss issues of importance. Maine Humanities Council offers facilitated discussion projects, speaker events, grant funding, and more. Maine Humanities Council would love to work with you to bring programming into your organization and your community. Please visit mainehumanities.org to learn more.
Welcome again. 75 jobs need to be filled by 2029 in Maine. Inclusion in Maine, a conference that has made reminding Mainers about the importance of workforce inclusion a priority, concluded last week after 3 days of programming. Here we have Khan, the founder of Inclusion Maine.
There's a huge workforce gap, and we need people within the state. We need at least 75,000 people by 2029, and although there's been some progress towards that goal, businesses still need to continue to attract and keep people within the state so we can continue to grow and meet our workforce needs.
Why did you choose the Hopeful for as a theme?
So one of the reasons Hopeful was chosen is because we in terms of what's happening nationally around diversity, equity, and inclusion, the conversation has become at times politicized, and we want to give the message that we are hopeful about the future and we're hopeful about the work that's being done, and we're excited about it. It is exciting work that is nothing related to politics or partisan work. It has everything to do with people from all backgrounds and making sure they feel safe, included within our state, and we're hopeful about that future.
What's the different or better about this year conference compared to last year outcome?
Yes, I think this year our messaging is a little bit better. We are getting closer to the overall message we want to send, which is inclusion within the business community, within workplaces, but also within the larger community outside of the workplace. Thinking about folks, they're there about 40 hours a week or a little bit more at their work, but we're in the community all the time. We're meeting and interacting with people. So getting that message to employers that we need to work within the workplace, but also within the community to make sure people are fully feel safe in the areas that they live. So that's the message that we've been trying to deliver, and this year we're doing a much better job of it. So I think historically there's been effort to do this work. Even 20, 30 years back, there's been folks that have been talking about this and have been working to it. So I think this year what is unique about this effort is the community is coming together, and there's many different community partners. They're all working together towards this larger goal. In the past, we've had a lot of interest and a lot of organizations and groups working on this effort in different ways of attracting and keeping people in the state, but it's often been siloed, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring the conference together, where people from every single part of the state would be able to come together under one roof and collectively work towards that broader strategy of attracting and keeping people. And one other thing that I just wanted to add is that this work is really siloed, and that is one of the challenges that we've noticed all throughout in terms of how this work is being done. So that's why we wanted to overcome that, and particularly we wanted to make sure every single county, there were people represented from every single county in Maine within this conference. So we've been excited to have that for the last 3 years. We've had people, so we really want to make sure this is a statewide effort and includes everyone from all parts of the state.
How do you envision its future role in fostering inclusion and driving positive change?
That's a really great question. I think the one big thing is within workplaces, making sure that people feel included. So that it has to do with education, and also when an incident happens, when people feel discriminated, there being a process as well as groups to help address those kinds of challenges. So having a framework and having a wraparound support as well as having a baseline at least that we can have is making sure that there's, when the incidents happen, there is a process and folks that are dedicated towards addressing those kinds of challenges, and also we continue to provide education overall. And in the future, what I believe will happen is we will continue to see diverse communities grow within the state, and I think we'll also see folks being more authentic to how they want to live. Folks wanting to live the way they want to. They want to live in line with their culture, their values, and I think that will happen all throughout this state, and we'll have a tapestry of communities from many different backgrounds living the way they want to live within the state under one roof. I think that's where we want to go in the future.
Okay. This conference, it's highlighted for the youth opportunities, especially for the immigrants youth generation.
Yes.
So because sometimes they are facing difficulties enter the workforce.
Absolutely.
So, and tell me your organization, how to dealing with this problem. Absolutely. And how you going to make the options with your organization.
Absolutely. Personally, I'm an immigrant myself and grew up within Maine. I went to the school system here. So I'm personally, but also many of us are familiar with the challenges that folks face, whether it's discrimination, harassment, access to opportunity, being, that larger vision of what they want, where they want to go professionally. So those are all challenges that we hear across the board. One of the things that we're focusing with employers on is how can they help youth be prepared for 21st century skills. So how can they offer more job sharing opportunities, more internships, more development programs where folks can come into a position with very limited experience, but they can build that experience up being on the job. So those are some of the things that we've emphasized in an earlier session today. Yesterday, the session was focused on how to support immigrant youth. And this is something that we want to continue to emphasize across businesses, that we need to focus on making sure youth are ready.
Entrepreneurs, employers, and human resources workers from state and private sectors attended this three-day event. Tai Chung was among the speakers. He drew a straight line between the education of children of color and eventual workforce inclusion.
We've got 70,000 college kids in the state of Maine. 14,000 are kids of color. That's a pretty remarkable number. If you think about it, in 10 years, we have as many kids going through our college university system as we have people being employed in the state of Maine. We've got about 750,000 people working in the state of Maine. We have 700,000 kids in 10 years that could be going through our college university systems. And 140,000 of them are kids of color. And that I want to talk about as far as an injustice for me, or kind of our failure, is the first generation kids. The first generation kids, what happens is, most of them happen to be 60% are women. A lot of them are caretakers. They're either caring for their kids or their parents. They're working their way through college. But the thing is, 40% of USM students and UMaine students are first generation. On the aggregate, if you include Bowdoin and all the other private schools, it's 32%. And what's happening to them? Well, they're not doing very well when it comes to graduation rates. If you look at first generation versus multi-generational kids, about 60% of them don't end up with a college student. They drop out, right? And 27 for first generation, for non-first generation kids. And the disparity is even bigger when you look at the graduation rates. When we look at graduation rates for college kids, multi-generation kids is 80%. That's pretty good. But for first-generation kids, it's 60%. And when you look at that number, you're like, oh, it's only off by 20%. But for first-generation kids, think about all the barriers they have to go through to even graduate. And when you look at the disparity between kids who graduate and kids who don't, the difference in income for college graduates versus kids who have some college, the difference is $1 million over their lifetime. And it used to be that if you had some college or if you had an associate's degree, you could kind of bridge that gap, but it's not anymore. The economy has changed. And so, we have almost 250,000 people in the state of Maine with partial college degrees, and a lot of them happen to be first-generation people. And a lot of the first-generation people, like I said, are women, also people of color. So at USM, 25% are kids of color. A lot of these colleges where they have first-generation kids we're looking at is that particular population. And this is a really significant number. If you are a first-generation kid, you have all those barriers, you're 92% more likely to drop out of school than a second-generation or multi-generational student. That's a remarkable statistic. And that gap has a rippling effect, because if you're a caretaker for your elderly parents, and if you're kids, you're creating a system where they're not going to feel like they can get out of that particular, track. And, it all comes down to relationships and connections and mentorship. And it also comes down to, jobs. Your first job really sets the stage for so many things, especially for first-generation kids, to shorten the gap. If you want more skilled workers in the state of Maine, Maine employers have to figure out how to come up with internships, not as a way to do projects, but to expose more kids into the corporate culture.
Here some attendees react to what they learned from this conference.
Can you tell me what made you want to attend the conference and what exactly it was that brought you here?
So I've been working in this space for almost 10 years as part of the school system, and I am now employed by the New Mainers Resource Center. And so I'm very excited, obviously, to continue that work, to think about the workforce and workforce development and how many professionals we have who have come from other places and are underemployed. And so this is just a great opportunity to hear stories, connect with employers, meet like-minded people.
For sure, yeah. And the conference is called Inclusion Maine, obviously. How do you think Maine is doing in light of the conference in relation to inclusiveness?
Well, I think that there's always room for improvement. It's a long journey and it can be a slow journey. I've seen a lot of progress in the time that I've been here. I moved to Maine in 1996.
Oh, wow.
Have seen a lot of change, and particularly even in the school system, the work that was being done there. And it's really encouraging for me to hear people from away talk about what they're seeing here, because I think for many of us, we want more faster.
Sure.
But I think having people reflect and say that it's very positive is really encouraging.
Perspective. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And it was a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks to our team for covering the conference, Raymond Diamond, Denanji Ratanayake, and Mark Matos. Renewing East Africa, a conference on humanitarian aid, stabilization, good governance, was held in South Portland on May 3rd. Organized by the Nurture All Africa Foundation, the conference built awareness of challenges the East Africa region and its population face, and how Mainers can be part of renewing East Africa. What is needed is humanitarian aid, stabilization, and good governance. Dr. Abdullahi Ali, the CEO of Nurture All Africa Foundation, insists that youth and all diaspora members have to push for change.
We also have to take responsibility as a community that those folks and those systems and those leaders, governments, come from us. And it's time for us to reclaim our positions. It's time for us to disrupt those systems. It's time for us to bring about change. And that can happen in so many different ways. It can happen, of course, in smaller ways, what we are doing right now, we are trying to do, when so many people that have shared their experiences here today are willing to do or have done, is to make smaller changes that will hopefully, in the long run, contribute to the ultimate change that we want to see. At the same time, mostly, this is for the younger people, it's time to bring about change by disrupting those systems, those government, and challenging those in power to voice our concerns, to point out what we think is happening in places that we call home, and making sure that we hold those folks in places of power accountable. Having said that, I have no doubt, listening the panel of young African leaders that were here right now, and their conversation and their hopes, the aspirations that they shared, that we are, as people, heading to the right direction. And as I said earlier, Nature All Africa is here to create platform, is here to be only one of those spaces where people can channel their support, their ideas, and can create some sort of impact. And we will continue to provide those platforms.
Children who have experienced corrective loss have an opportunity for healing and coming together to build a community through the Center for Grieving Children in Maine. Amjambo visited the center and spoke with Intercultural Program Coordinator Justine Mugabo to understand how they help children.
So the intercultural program is where all children who had experienced collective loss and changes come together to build a community. So we have so many families moved in Maine. So, but we collaborate with only with Portland schools and volunteers. So we have different things that we are doing with these children to support them to integrate to the new place. We make connection, we learn from each other how to balance the two cultures, and we also build our identity, because when people move to a new place, they lose their identity. So we have so many activities, as I said, and games that we do, and we do also some projects together, because they have a lot of strengths and skills. So when they come to this program, it's helped them to build their strengths.
Tell me, what kind of challenges you facing when you're doing this program?
Our goal is to provide the safe space to children and teens to express themselves. So when they are not able to speak the language, that's the first challenge that we have. You can see that children want to express themselves, but because they can't speak, that's a really big challenge for me, the language. And another one is when they move to a new school before the end of the program, because with the children, the migration for children is inevitable. So it's really affecting all of us.
Some of the children spoke about their experience with the Center for Grieving Children.
I had an early dream before, when I was fresh out of the center after graduating and everything. I wanted to make my own center and have all kinds of students together. And although I absolutely appreciate the multicultural program, and I would keep that as well, I want another one as well that integrates just a little bit more. I don't know if that would become an experiment or if that would be good and solid, but I want it to be solid. And especially Portland, we have so many, like Portland High School in itself has like tens of 50 or 60 or 70 languages. Like that alone, even in that school, I could a program could be made to integrate more. I kind of just want to see a little bit more integration, because the separation's happening a little too much for my own liking. So I kind of would like to see more of that. The adults are adults. We know how to do what we need to do. But for kids, I think, I don't know, something's missing at home. I don't know. A little bit more interconnectedness, whatever the word is, a little bit more of that is what I would like to see if I can make, hopefully when or if I can make a program like this. That was always my number one goal ever since graduating and spending so much time here. I liked it. I liked the many people, the facilitators, the different students. Even when I was a student, even within our multicultural group, some of us still stuck closer to one another. That was similar. The more Muslim kids kept to each other, and the boys kept to each other, the girls, the girly girls, and that was great, and it was wonderful, and I want that times 5. Yes.
The Cambodian New Year festival was celebrated along the riverbank in Westbrook. We have Marpheen Chan, the Executive Director of Khmer Maine, with us.
This is the second year that we've held a public Khmer New Year festival here in riverbank, Westbrook, Maine, and they've been gracious hosts in terms of allowing us to host it here. But obviously, the relationship, it goes two ways. Through this festival, we're showing people that Khmer people, Cambodian people, Southeast Asians, and Asian Americans in general have a large impact on the local community. We start businesses, as you can see, with the food trucks that are here, and the Bitterban is here, Barry Larry's food truck is here. So we have businesses that are growing and a huge part of the community. And then we also have partnerships with different community organizations like Presente Maine and the Chinese American Friendship Association in Maine. And I know that they're members of the Filipino community that are here as well. And so this isn't just the Khmer New Year. We're celebrating the spring harvest, and we're welcoming the community here, and it's important because we get to share our culture, but we also want to, have everyone participate and share their culture as well. Yeah, for me, I ended up in foster care, living with white families and adopted by white families in rural Maine, and in Acton, Maine, I was 9-10 years old. New community, new school, was one of 2 Cambodian people in the school with my sister, and we felt really lonely and isolated, but at the same time, Acton Elementary School teachers and students got together and they organized a Cambodian New Year for me and my sister, and that really meant a lot to us. And so part of the reason why I'm doing this today is because it was important to me back then. And for all the Khmer kids and Cambodian kids here today, seeing that people from all backgrounds are here to celebrate with them, I think is a way to show them that they don't have to hide who they are. And for me, the Cambodian community, building this for them is great. But next year, it's going to be bigger and better, but not just for Khmer New Year. I'm going to be focusing on bringing together members of the Southeast Asian and Pacific Island community, because Thai folks, Laotian, also celebrate New Year. And so that's part of our goal, to build a stronger community among Asian Americans. And to your question about how the pandemic affected our community, a lot of people had stigmas based on, us sharing the same continent. Asia is a huge continent, and, a lot of us have darker skin and different shapes of eyes. But they all looked at us and saw that we were the same to them and thought that we were the source of the pandemic and of COVID. And so, whether you're Indian American, Cambodian American, Chinese American, or from any other part of Asia, we all felt that we were being stared at, looked at, ridiculed, harassed, beaten up on the street. And so by us coming out, there was a shooting in Atlanta of an Asian nail salon during the pandemic. So by us coming out like this, we're saying like, no, we're a part of your community. We invest in your community. We create jobs. We work at all the different industries. And what is America without us, you know? So, you know, I think that the stigmas around Asian people having COVID or spreading COVID dates back to the 1800s, where they had a fear of Asian people in general when it was the Spanish flu. Back then it was the Spanish flu. They were burning Chinatowns in different neighborhoods. And so even despite that, you know, Asian communities have shown that they're resilient, that, you know, they still want to be a part of America and to build a lot of parts of America. And so I think that's what this event and many other communities in Maine are trying to show is, you know, we're here, you know, we make Maine better. And when we celebrate, come celebrate with us.
We are language partners. We are local interpreting and translation agencies, important area. Today is such beautiful weather, and we're just to be very delighted to be in this event to celebrate the culture, to celebrate our root and our heritage. So our agency are here to provide language and translation services and language services in general to many of our partners in the Portland and Houston areas or across the Maine. So we're just very happy to be able to join this great opportunity to share what we can do for our community.
Jaha Kuzimana, your host. We are at the end of today's show. Remember, the website amjamboafrica.com has a variety of great news, and you can pick up Amjambo Africa newspaper at stands like Hannaford, Burundi Cafe, the markets on Lisbon Street in Lewiston, Coffee by Design, and many more places. Together with the entire team of Amjambo Africa, we thank you. Bye.